Today we have a video of a Christian asking, why don't you just believe in God? Why don't you just start believing in something that you have no evidence for, that you don't believe in? Just choose to start believing in it and do what this magical book of ours says, without reason or rhyme. Take it away.
I think it's interesting how, there's people out there who are totally against God, they don't believe in God, or atheists.
I myself feel I have always been skeptical, but there have been a lot of scars in my life that really led me down this path, coming from a mostly religious family. Without saying too much and getting too personal, there were things when I was a child that I used to pray to God for, to beg with Him, to plead with Him, and they never stopped. It's only probably within the last year or so that I would call myself an atheist, because I used to struggle with the negative connotation surrounding the word. But I think back then was when I really used to doubt the existence of God, or at least the God that cared about me. Some people find atheism through tragedy, through a hard life, and some find it through science and reason.
There's people out there just so convinced that, God is not real, but they're just so trapped in their own convictions that they don't really, they don't have an open mind, so they're led in the wrong direction, basically.
Maybe that's because they've seen no evidence of the God that is in the Bible. And I'll keep coming back to my own experience. One thing that I always struggled with was a God that was so vindictive that He would take attendance, that He would condemn entire groups of people because of the time period or the place in which they were born, where Christianity hadn't spread yet. I honestly hope the God of the Bible isn't real. And you are also making the fallacy that atheism is an active claim that there is no God. Not believing in a God is very different from asserting that there is no possibility that a God exists. We are just saying that there has not been sufficient evidence provided to support the existence of a deity, much less the Abrahamic God specifically.
And my message to all those people is that there's no proof that God does not exist.
You would think by now that some of these people would understand that this argument is a logical fallacy. This is known as the argument from ignorance, wherein you state that there is no evidence that the wild claim that I made is not true, so it must be true. I could make the argument that I rode on a three-legged unicorn to Narnia last night, but just because no one can prove that I didn't does not mean that I actually did. This is a logical fallacy. Stop using this argument. And not to mention, there is evidence that contradicts the events in the Bible, and if the Bible is the basis of your faith, then it could be said that it contradicts your faith or your God. The earth is older than the Bible allows for. Evolution is a fact. The Genesis story of Adam and Eve just makes no sense. Not to mention, many of the stories in the Bible, including the story of Jesus himself, are just retellings of old stories that had existed for hundreds of years before the Bible and Jesus himself supposedly lived. The virgin birth was not a new idea. Rising from the dead after 3 days was not a new idea. The birthday, the 12 disciples, all of these things can be drawn back to other mythologies and other myths throughout history.
All the stuff in the Bible, everything in the Bible is just good. If you read the Bible, it can only make you a better person, and that is it. End of story. Reading the Bible will only lead you to good things, and that is 100% fact.
That's 100% fact, is it? You're telling me that if I read the Bible cover to cover, I won't find one scripture advocating, say, slavery, genocide, Murder? No? Exodus chapter 21, verses 20 and 21. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. So, apparently, owning slaves and beating them makes me a better person as long as I don't kill them. I mean, it is in the Bible after all, right? I'll paraphrase this one a little bit. Deuteronomy chapter 13. Verses 1 through 4 basically say, if a prophet or one who foretells appears among you and announces a sign or wonder and it comes true and he encourages you to follow another god, then verse 5 states, that prophet or dreamer must be put to death for inciting rebellion against the Lord your God. I mean, the Bible only has good things, right? So it must be a good thing to just slaughter people and kill them for no other reason than they don't believe the way you do and they try to explain to you or bring you around to their way of thinking. It can only make you a better person, guys. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 34 and 35. Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. So thinking that women should just shut up and do whatever the man says would make me a better person, right? Like if I just expected women to do whatever I told them and shut up, I would be a better person. It's in the Bible. I can't imagine how you even made this statement. The fact that you can just shows how shut out from reality that some religious people really are. And I didn't even put in some of the verses advocating what today we would consider as war crimes. You know, some people argue that morality comes from God, but I would say that the God of the Bible is a very, very immoral God. The Bible is full of things that we know better than to do today. So trying to say that the Bible is only good is a very ignorant statement, and I don't know why anyone would even say it.
So, even if you don't believe in the Lord, why not? Like, why not just believe? Why not just do what the Bible says? Because the Bible only tells us to do good things. If every single person on this earth did exactly what the Bible said and lived exactly how it tells us to live, then there would be zero problems in this earth.
Except for all the rape, slavery, genocide, and women having no rights.
And it blows my mind that people do not understand this. I just don't get it. Like, how can you not just understand this concept?
Because maybe some people have actually read the Bible and understand what's in it and realize that the Bible is not a good basis for morality. You could use verses in the Bible to justify things that we know today are horrific things that you should never do to another person.
You know, like I said, you don't have any proof that heaven and hell don't exist, so why not just believe, in heaven and, seek out answers and...
Why don't you just magically start believing in this thing that we have no evidence for and no basis to believe in other than the fact that we were told to believe it? Huh? Why not?
Why not just live your life like there is a heaven? Or why not just spend your life believing in God and believing in the Bible? Because if you don't believe in Him, you're going to hell. And that is a fact. So...
It's a fact because our magical fairy tale told us so.
Oh, why are you taking a risk of denying God and not believing in Him when there's a chance that you're going to end up in hell by not believing in Him?
You see this argument made a lot where they assume that it's a 50-50 choice, when in reality they don't believe in almost as many gods as I do. There's one more. There's one God that is the difference between me and them. Why don't they just believe in all the other gods? What if they're right? Which God do you choose? It's not like there are two choices and one has a possibility of ending up in hell if you're wrong, and one has a possibility of nothing happening if you're wrong. If the Islamic God is the one true God, do you think he's going to be happy that you were worshiping this other God this entire time? No. This is another argument based on a fallacy because it assumes only one God has ever been worshipped or known of in the history of mankind. It leaves only 4 options. 1, believe in God, God is real, you go to heaven. 2, God is real, you don't believe in God, and you go to hell. 3, God is not real, and you don't believe in God, and when you die, you just die. Nothing else happens. Or 4, you believe in God. God turns out not to be real, and you die, and you just die. Nothing else happens. Now, if you were given these 4 choices alone and your eternity depended on it, then you would logically probably choose the first option, because if you turned out to be wrong, it would be no different than if you didn't believe in God and you turned out to be right. Whereas if you don't believe in God, either way, nothing good happens. But as I already said, this is a fallacy because it assumes only one possible God to worship. This argument is known as Pascal's wager, and it has been debunked 1,000 times.
Alright, why are you even taking that? What's the point of taking that risk? Believing in God is literally only going to lead you to good things. Like, nothing bad has ever happened from someone putting their 100% trust in the Lord. So, you know, if you don't believe in heaven, start reading the Bible, consider it strongly. Start reading it every single day. Only you can read 10 minutes a day, and you'll really feel better, and you'll really gain a lot of wisdom.
That's the thing. Most people who are atheists were raised in some sort or form of religion. I would say most atheists have been to church, have read the Bible, have studied it. Some of the things in the Bible are the reasons that I and others have chosen not to be religious. Whether those are things that we can't reconcile from a moral point of view, or things that we can't reconcile with reality in science. There are things in the Bible that turn people away from religion.
And why are you even taking? Why do we take the risk? Why do people take the risk of not believing in heaven, and they take the risk of going to hell? It's a very large risk.
Now again, Pascal's wager is a very poor point of view. It assumes only 2 possible outcomes: God is real or God is not real, and does not take into consideration all the other gods that you don't believe in either. Things are starting to get circular here, and you're not making any new arguments at this point, just the same one over and over of why not believe? What do you have to lose? For one, I would lose my respect for myself, and for another thing, I can't force myself to believe in something whenever I don't have the evidence required for me to believe in it. I can't force myself to believe in something with everything I've seen and everything that's happened in my life. Why don't you try it? Why don't you just try to start believing in leprechauns today? Just try to believe in leprechauns. You can't force yourself to believe in something whenever the evidence is not there, and in your mind you do not actually believe it. You cannot just decide to start believing in something. There was a few more minutes to the video, but that's about all I could do, and I feel that it's long enough already, so thanks for watching.